Hey, what's going on, guys? It's week 5. Let's get to some football plays. I'm sorry, I was out last week. I had a terrible migraine, and I couldn't think. I couldn't talk. I couldn't speak. Wasn't right until about Sunday morning. So I apologize for no video last week. Hopefully, you guys had some good lineups. I did get my write up in uh, late Saturday. We're a little bit more prepared this week. So let's take a look at what we got going on this week and let's get to some games. All right, we're just going to go through the games like we always do. We got Tennessee going to Miami. No spread on that right now. I'm assuming that has to do with the Marcus Mariota news. Miami's coming back from across the pond in where they just got shelled by the Saints. Looked terrible. And they're going to go against Tennessee, who may or may not have a quarterback. So it's going to be kind of an interesting game. I'm looking at this game, and what I see is Tennessee, which has a absolutely atrocious pass defense. Yeah, they're 29th against the pass, uh, and they're 31st against wide receiver twos. Um, Yeah, and 25th against the tight end. I feel like if Mariota plays, um, Rashard Matthews is in play. He's not a true number one. They're actually ranked fairly well against wide receiver number ones. The hard part is with Matthews, he's not a true number one. I'll look him up here real quick to give you kind of an idea. Rashard Matthews. Yeah, so he plays 44% out of the right cornerback spot. So he will draw Byron Maxwell, which has never really been that good at defense, to be quite honest with you. And then he'll also get Xavier Howard, which is what guy that I like to pick on quite a bit in fantasy. So I think for there you can fire up Rashad Matthews, no problem this week, only if Mariota plays. If Mariota doesn't play, I'm not playing him. I'm taking him out of the lineup. I will still look to play Delaney Walker because for backup quarterbacks, one of their best things that coaches can do to eliminate quarterbacks who don't have a lot of game time experience for the year, don't have a lot of chemistry with that offense, is throw to the tight end. And so I could see Delaney Walker being Castle's safety valve. If Mariota plays, I still look at Delaney Walker because Miami is so bad against tight ends that, like I said, they rank 25th. One thing that I do struggle with a little bit on the Tennessee side is I don't know. Miami actually ranks second against the run, but they're 29th against passes out of the backfield to running backs. And what that tells me is I think the second, ranking second against the run, I don't see that as actually being able to be sustainable for Miami. They've been bad against the run in the past. So I think if you go somewhere in the middle of the road there, and I'm wondering if Mariota's hurt, obviously they're going to probably try to run the ball a little bit more. But also with that hamstring, is he going to have to start dumping some passes out of the backfield, not being able to push the ball downfield with his legs, because when you want to throw, you got to use your legs and your arm, not just your arm. So it kind of makes me look at DeMarco Murray, and that's just in a GPP play only, but it's kind of interesting to look at. And like I said, the Matthews is in play, but only if Mariota is playing. Now, if you go to the other side of the ball, you go to Miami, and we know Tennessee has a terrible pass defense, okay? This year, they also grade out not that good against the run. But the thing about it is they don't grade out very good against the run, but they're still only allowing 3.8 yards per carry. I like to see my number over like 4.2, 4.3 yards per carry when I'm going against a team. So for me, Jay Ajayi is off my list. I'm not saying that this isn't a good spot for him. I'm just saying for me personally, he's off my list. And I'm going to fire up Devontae Parker and maybe possibly Jarvis Landry. My problem with Landry, even though they grade out so bad against the pass, is I just don't like his ADOT, which is average depth of target. So he might catch 5, 6, 7, 8 balls, but he might have 60, 70 yards. And unless they get inside the 10, he's probably not going to score. And so his touchdown upside is really limited, where I kind of feel that Parker has, bigger play potential. I think his ADOT is somewhere right around 15 yards, so that kind of tells you something. And that they look for him in the red zone, and they look for him on longer pass routes, and his touchdown upside for me is that much higher. And Tennessee's been getting picked apart, so I actually have Jay Cutler on my list of quarterbacks. As bad as he's looked this year, Tennessee's pass defense has looked that bad. And quite honestly, this could be an ugly game. It also could be a shootout. And what I'm hoping for is that Mariota plays and we see a 24-21 ball game out of this. I think if that's the case, Jay Cutler makes some sense in this spot. So my stud wide receiver is Devontae Parker for sure, but everybody else that I listed for is in play, mostly in GPPs. I think you can play Devontae Parker in cash if you're going to play cash this week. And just full disclosure, I'm not playing any cash this week. I'm playing all GPPs, and I'm trying out a new strategy. So hopefully that works out. I've been talking with a couple people about doing it, and we'll see. It's all about owning market share, and I'll talk to you about that some other time. Well, let's go down the list here. All right, surprisingly enough, this game actually could have some real juicy impact into it. And it's weird because the teams I'm going to throw out, you're going to say, no. So I have Cleveland at home, and they're taking on the New York Jets. Yep. Could possibly be one of the better games this week. Maybe not on an actual football standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint. So I'll throw a couple numbers out at you here. The Jets, they rank 27th against the rush and 28th against wide receiver ones in pass coverage. They do cover the tight end well, so just keep that in mind. They're second against that. However, that kind of leads me to what the Jets have. The Browns aren't good at, well, they're really not good at anything, but the Jets have a hard time, I should say, covering the pass, out of the backfield. Duke Johnson has been tearing it up. 9 targets, 10 targets. He doesn't get any rushes, but he gets a lot of receiving work. And for his price tag, I could see putting in a Duke Johnson because he still has some touchdown upside to him, and they're going to throw dump-off passes to him. So if he gets, let's say, 10 targets, catches 8 balls, 40 yards, there's 12 points, you add in a touchdown, 20, he's crushed his value. He's almost went 5x on value. So it's not a bad GPP play. He's definitely not a cash game play. All the receivers should be in play, but who the hell are you going to play? I mean, Ricardo Lewis, Kenny Britt, Rashad Higgins. It's just not for me. But I could see Roland Kaiser naked in this situation. And by naked, I just mean that he's a playing by himself and you're not actually stacking him with any wide receiver. So I could definitely see that being a way to go. On the Jets side of the ball, it feels dirty, it feels wrong, but it also makes a lot of sense, is playing Josh McCown. He's 4,700 for a quarterback that, although his ceiling isn't super high, where else are you going to find somebody that can get you 12 to 15 points consistently and you get Cleveland's defense? So if you think about it, 4,700 to hit value, I would really like if I was going to play him in like a GPP to hit like 4x, right? So he almost has to have 20. And so that gets a little stretching it. But the thing about it is, Cleveland's kind of a funnel defense this year. Let me look at this here just real quick. And the Jets. Yeah, so Cleveland's actually, they're ranking 6 against the run this year, but they are 32nd against wide receiver ones, 25th for passes out of the backfield. So Bilal Powell is definitely in play, and 27th against the tight end. And when I rank them out in the tight end spot, I want to say they came in third worst. Because I have a way that I actually rank these instead of just yards. I take yards and targets, touchdowns, and I weight them all. So I'm not going to play him. I'm just telling you right now. He's burned me in the past. I don't think he's a very good tight end. Could I see him scoring a touchdown and having 70 yards and 6 receptions this week? Oh, absolutely. It's just a personal thing, but Austin Seferian-Jenkins. So if you, he's also cheap. You could stack, theoretically, you could stack Josh McCown and put him with a Seferian-Jenkins and run it back with Duke Johnson. So you have 3 basically punt plays that have a high upside. And now you can fill the rest of your team with the big studs that we got coming up here. It's just a thought. I haven't sat down and done my construction yet. But that's something you can definitely look at. Like I said, Cleveland's 30th against the pass. And I hear people say you can play Jermaine Kearse. I'm not playing any wide receiver. Maybe Robbie Anderson. I just don't think the Jets wide receivers are very good at all. I just don't. But Josh McCown keeps getting 200, 250 yards. And against this bad defense for 4,700, I'm going to take a flyer on it for sure. Now that I feel like I have to take a bath after talking about those 2 games, let's get to some better games. Football-wise, maybe not fantasy-wise, but we got Detroit. They're at home against Carolina. Okay, first off, let me tell you, Cam ain't going to have a game like he had last week. And if he does, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I also thought Detroit's secondary wasn't nearly as good as what they are. They actually have a sneaky, decent defense. It's not like elite by any means, but they play slow ball control on offense, and their defense they've been doing things fundamentally right, and it really makes boring games. Atlanta wasn't boring, but the other 2 they played was. I could see a situation here where Carolina doesn't do a ton. The guy that I'm interested in, for me, and I have him start as one of my top plays, is Golden Tate. He gets Captain Munnerlyn. You were Vikings fans. We know what Detroit's done to us out of the slot before. Same exact guy running a zone defense. How do you beat a zone defense? You can't go deep, so you keep everything underneath, funnel it to the middle. That's where Golden Tate likes to run his routes. I just see this as a Golden Tate type of game. They're going to try to limit Marvin Jones from going deep. Eric Ebron has been outsnapped by Darren Fells. Yes, you can Google that. He used to play for, I want to say it was Arizona. So I think the Eric Ebron thing is just dead now in Detroit. I think it's over. Abdullah looked good, but Carolina has a really good run defense. That's just not something that I'm going to target. And on the other side of the ball, man, so last week I put out a Cam to Funchess, actually, and I had a Tyler Croft on the same exact lineup and ran it back with a couple people, hoping that we hit. We hit on those. Funchess got another 10 targets. He draws Nevin Lawson. Nevin Lawson isn't great. They say Slay is going to be on him, but I can't see Slay not being on Kelvin Benjamin this week and leaving Funchess. So basically, if Slay is on Benjamin, Funchess is in play. If Slay is on Funchess, Benjamin's in play. So now that's kind of something like pick your poison. It's not a great situation to be in. If anybody that I'm going to play is probably Christian McCaffrey, 5,700. Detroit, I don't trust their linebackers. I don't think their linebackers are that good. Stats say otherwise. The rankings, they're number one against passes out of the backfield. I honestly just don't see their linebackers being that good. So if anybody in this game, I guess I would be playing Christian McCaffrey. I'm probably going to be off of that. And I also could actually see playing a Matt Stafford to Golden Tate stack in this. But as far as the Panthers go, I'm out. Play Cam if you want. I could be wrong. But New England's Patriots defense is bad. And I think that was more of a product of a bad defense than it was Cam actually coming back to where he normally would be. So let's get off of that game. This one I have a lot of interest in. It's the Eagles against the Cardinals. And Wendell Smallwood's out. Okay, so just make sure you know that. It came down today that he's going to be out. So that puts in, for me, for a cheaper running back, possibly LeGarrette Blount. I haven't made up my mind if I'm going that direction. But here's what I do like. Outside of whoever Patrick Peterson covers, if Pat Pete covers Alshon, I like Torrey Smith. He can't catch the ball right now, but he's beating everybody on routes. And Wentz is hitting him. Wentz is actually being very accurate to Torrey Smith deep. I just don't... He's dropped 3 touchdowns, and it's so frustrating because he's so cheap, and one of those touchdowns and a long bomb hits value. You got to understand, it's going to be a punt play. It's not like, don't expect a floor of 10 points from Torrey Smith. But if you're making a GPP lineup and you feel like you're very confident in every other spot and you need to differentiate yourself and you like this game, I see Torrey Smith being a very good play. And the other one is Nelson Aguilar. Honey Badger gets a lot of credit, but he's struggling coming back from injury. And if you look at some of his stats, they're not that great this year. He's actually... I don't trust PFF grading, so I don't want to use a grade on him. But when you look at like cover snaps to target, cover snaps per reception, and yards per reception, he's not that good this year. So I could also see getting some Nelson Aguilar if you need some salary relief. And when you go through, we got Arizona, they're 22nd against the tight end. Obviously, they have Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is, he's good. He's absolutely good. He's a good tight end, and his price reflects it. So I could see you being kind of contrarian a little bit instead of paying down at tight end, since tight end's so weak, is paying up. And then people have this perception that Arizona has this really tough defense, and they did have a really tough defense. People still are living 2 years ago when they were really good. And don't get me wrong, Patrick Peterson's good. Chandler Jones is good, but it's not what it was. They lost some of those safeties, and they didn't replace them really with anybody. And they're not that good on the back end there. On the other side, I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to look right into this camera and say I do not play Carson Palmer. Okay, made that. He's in a great spot. Again, that comes down to a personal thing. I do not play Carson Palmer. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't play him. It's just a personal thing. He's in a great spot. You know who gives up the most yards in the league? Cornerback Jalen Mills. Okay? You know who Jalen Mills covers? He covers anybody on the outside. And so that's going to leave you, this is the guessing game. John Brown, Jerron Brown, or J.J. Nelson on the outside. You're going to have to figure out which one, because I can't figure out which one. I wish John Brown had just been healthy and we didn't have to guess every week, because then he would be my go-to start this week. But I can see any one of those having a good game. Larry Fitzgerald, I love him. I love him as a player. He can F off after last week. That late touchdown in overtime ended up taking a nice week to not so nice of a week, because he was 25% owned in all these bigger tournaments that I play in, and the points in those are so tight. I mean, 100 places is separated by 2 or 3 points, and that Larry Fitzgerald touchdown crushed me right at the end. I was so excited because I had faded him in every contest, and I thought I made this great play, and then right at the end of overtime, he catches a touchdown, and it is what it is, But he does draw Patrick Robinson, who's a little bigger of a cornerback in the slot, and he actually grades out fairly well for the slot and all the metrics that you look at. So I'm not going to be on Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald is going to be a very high-owned quarterback or wide receiver this week. I'm out. And it's not anything really to do with Larry Fitzgerald. It has to do with I just don't think Carson Palmer's good. I think he tries to make throws that he can't make anymore, but he'll still just keep trying to make those throws. And he doesn't realize that he can't make those throws. Andre Ellington's in play. God, last week, his touchdown, so frustrating. I thought he had a touchdown. I was the only one on him. Got him at 1% ownership. I was just have a day, Andre Ellington. Felt so good to hit that play, and then they reversed that touchdown. But he still got 9 targets. Philly's defense, this is where I'm kind of leading into, is they're going to get to the quarterback. They have a high pressure rate, and Arizona gives up a lot of pressure. So Carson, if he's smart, and that's a big question, if he's smart, he's going to have to get it to his back, and that's going to be Andre Ellington. And so another cheap option where some of these studs that we're going to get to are very expensive is go with it. Go with Andre Ellington in this situation. I think he's in a great spot. The other place I think is in a great spot is I actually think Philadelphia defense is just in an absolute great spot. I've ranted about Carson Palmer. You know exactly why I think he's in a good spot. The other thing is they're going to get sacks. When sacks lead to turnovers, and you can basically throw the points out the door as far as a defensive shutout, because once they score over 10 points, now you're just playing for sacks and turnovers, and I'm looking at that as they could be a chalk defense. I'm not sure yet. I haven't really dug into that, but I definitely like the Philly defense here. So let's move on. We've got the Ravens at Raiders and no Derek Carr. So no Derek Carr for me. You can scratch everybody off with the Oakland offense. Maybe Jared Cook if you're looking that way. Backups like to throw to their tight ends. Jalen Richard pops for me a little bit. I'm not going to play him, but I want to get his name out there in case he does. So, people don't think I just make this crap up. And the reason I think he's in there is Baltimore allows just a little over 11 yards per target to running backs. Everybody thinks Baltimore has this tough defense, and they do. Don't get me wrong. But every defense has a weakness, and Baltimore's has been tight end. They're semi-weak against that, and they're semi-weak against pass-catching running backs. So I look at that. Maybe if you're going to take a flyer. But other than that, I got to stay off there because E.J. Manuel is just not good. You go to the other side, and this gets a little interesting for me. Flacco's not good. Okay, we all know that. He has a cheap price tag on him. What we also know is Harbaugh likes to throw over 40 times a game. You combine that with they're on the road going, east to west, so it's not as bad for him as it is going from west to east. But I still don't think, I don't think the Ravens are going to come out and just dominate Oakland and run out the clock. So I still think Flacco could get, his 40-some pass attempts this game. And if you look at it, the Raiders are bad against the running back pass. They're bad against wide receivers ones. They're bad against wide receiver two, and they're bad against the tight end. They're going to be dejected because their quarterback's out. So that automatically says, okay, well, I don't think they're going to be up for this game as they normally would. I think a lot of Ravens are actually in play, and I think you're going to get them at low owned. They have a low team total, so you got to pay attention to that if you don't think they're going to score. But I think Macklin's in play, Ben Watson's in play, and my sneaky guy that I have underlined is Alex Collins. If he could just hold on to the freaking football. But he got a lot of work last week, and fumbling is going to be his reason that he doesn't get to play. The other play is Buck Allen. I don't like Buck Allen, but I can definitely make a case for it, and I'm going to dig between one of those two. They are going to be on some of my lineups. I don't know which one yet, but they are definitely going to be on some of my lineups this week. And I think the Ravens playmakers actually have a good chance to do some damage this week in fantasy, and you can get them at really low ownership. That's a game that I'm really going to dig into. So here's the next one. Rams, and they're at home against Seattle, and everybody's on Russ Wilson train, and I love Russ. I have a couple favorite quarterbacks, and it's always been Tom Brady number one, and I always liked Russ Wilson. I think he's good. I don't like Russ Wilson on the road. I know he played good in Tennessee. They had a horrible pass defense, and things started to shoot out in the second half in that game. So Russ finished with 30-some points. They also played Indy at home, and we know how bad Indy is. He just never... History-wise, he just doesn't play the Rams very good, and he doesn't play as well on grass on the road. I'm fading him, and I'm hoping he gets 15% ownership, 12% ownership in this game. Seattle-wise, I'm going to fade. They don't have a running back. I wish they came out and said Thomas Rawls or Eddie Lacy or whoever, that McKissick is our lead back, and we're going to roll with him. I would play them in this situation. LA's been bad against the run, even with Aaron Donald in the middle. they're still giving up almost 5 yards a carry. Might be 5 yards a carry, to be quite honest with you. I would not. I wouldn't play any of those running backs unless we know that they're going to get, 40, 50 snaps. It's too much of a guessing game. One could get hot, and Pete Carroll will run with whoever gets hot. You can always play Doug Baldwin. They're not great in the slot covering, so I can definitely make a case for that. I'm not going to play any of the other wide receivers. Jimmy Graham, he's non-existent in this offense. I still don't think he's a bad tight end. I just don't think he fits what they want to do. So I'm off of him. You go to the other side, and here's what's interesting is Seattle has the third worst run defense. They just get gashed left and right, okay? And you always think that Seattle is this tough defense, but that was back when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, Richard Sherman isn't the same player as he was when they won the Super Bowl. And you go to the other side, their corners are decent, but that's about the best that they got there. And obviously Earl Thomas is elite. But that up front, they're not good against the run, and those linebackers outside of Bobby Wagner are not very good. So on this situation, I'm torn because Todd Gurley is getting all the work. He's getting 30, 35, touches a game, including pass work. And KJ Wright is not a good pass catch, defending the pass as a linebacker. So I can definitely see the love for Gurley this week. The problem is where their weakest is running through the tackles, and that's where Los Angeles is the weakest at running the football. So Seattle's strengths match up well with Los Angeles' strengths, and their weaknesses match their weaknesses. I'm still torn. $8,000 for Todd Gurley, who's put up like 112 fantasy points this year already, is not bad at all. I could easily, I can easily make a case both ways, I guess. For me, he's on my list. I've got to do some research on where the ownership is. If you're watching this, you probably don't care about the ownership as much as you probably care about cashing. But yeah, if you can get him at around 15, 17%, I definitely would put Gurley on my teams. If he's going to be 20 to 25%, I'm going to be underweight, meaning that I'm probably going to have him in 10% of my lineups. But I do like the play. Sammy Watkins, please stand up. Show yourself. He had one game. Other than that, I don't see it. I definitely could see a sneaky play for Jared Goff spreading the football around. I'm not going to play him, but I'm just saying if you want to play a quarterback that is low owned. And yeah, I think it really comes down to Todd Gurley, and I got to do some research on that. The biggest game with the biggest spread, and of course the Cowboys are favored. I'm not a Green Bay fan. I absolutely despise them, but come on. The Cowboys are not a better team than Green Bay. The Cowboys might be a better team overall, but that defense is hideous, and Green Bay's isn't any better. But Green Bay has Aaron Rodgers, and Dallas has Dak Prescott. You tell me who's going to score more points. There's a couple big things for this game for me. I know Zeke's going to be about 30% owned. I like Zeke in this spot if Mike Daniels doesn't play. Mike Daniels for Green Bay on that D-line is the real deal. And when he plays, that whole entire front seven is completely different. They're bad against the run this year, but they're actually good when he plays. So for me, if Mike Daniels plays, I'm going to fade Zeke, and I'm going to leverage that, and I'm going to switch to Dez Bryant as my play. And I'm going to hope that Zeke busts so I can lap 30% of that field and have a chance. because Green Bay's secondary is terrible. They really honestly have nobody in that secondary that is a capable shutdown defender. Dak, I think, is also in a good spot. He's not a bad quarterback. You tell me who's going to put up more points. It's Aaron Rodgers or Dak Prescott. And if you say Dak, I'm sorry, but I think you're wrong. The thing about it is, though, on a fantasy standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world because in my mind, I think Green Bay gets up and Dak's going to have to throw to get him back in the ball game. And Dak also can run, which is adds a little rushing floor to your points. Going against a bad secondary, Dak isn't like some inaccurate passer, so I feel like he's definitely going to get some shots. So I think Dak's in play. I think Dez is finally in his best spot. You're going to get him at 6,500. Not sure how many people are going to be on him because he really hasn't produced. But he's finally going against a bad cornerback where the mismatch is so big. I think they're going to target him. I think they're going to target him a lot. And I think he goes for 100 in the touch. That's just going to be my prediction. So I do have Dak. Dak to Dez is one of my stacks for this week. On the other side, Jordy on turf, Jordy on grass. Jordy, I guess, doesn't really matter. Jordy anywhere is good. But Jordy gets the most red zone. He has the most red zone targets this year. He has the most red zone touchdowns this year. And Aaron Rodgers in the red zone, inside the 10, he's 10 for 12. And he has 8 touchdowns, 0 picks. So they get down there. They're looking for Jordy, and I want to say out of 8, he's got 5. They're looking for Jordy in the red zone. So Dallas's pass defense, man, they say they're ranked 15th, but I've seen that they're not. And you go to the slot. There's 2 things. They can either get Jordy into the slot and get a major mismatch against Orlando Scandrick, or they're going to put Randall Cobb there, and it's still going to be a mismatch. And so I like both of those plays. Sounds like Devontae Adams may play. If he plays, don't play him. I just don't think that hit was bad. So I don't think he's going to be out there having just a massive, massive day or anything. But Aaron Rodgers, I could definitely see one of those 304, days. And Jordy and Dez, we could just have a track made up and down. So this is the game that I'm probably going to have the most exposure to. And the next game that I'm going to have a lot of exposure to, which is, it's dirty to say, but the Colts and 49ers. And the reason being is I feel like they're both mediocre teams. I don't think they're as bad as the numbers may project them to be. I also know that they've got a long ways to go. So I could see Brissett and Hoyer dueling it out, getting to some bad secondaries and just slinging it around. Actually, San Francisco's front is shored up a lot better over, they got Solomon Thomas in the draft, and they have DeForest Buckner, and some of those guys, it's actually got fairly decent. With the Colts, Vontae Davis is back, so he's probably gonna hang on Pierre Garçon. And so from that point, it leaves whoever is going to be the second wide receiver. So Eldrick Robinson is what I'm kind of hoping happens. He's 3,100. He wasn't bad in Atlanta. He went with Shanahan to San Francisco, so they know each other, which is always kind of huge. I mean, he trusts them. And if Goodwin's out, they're going to have to throw the ball somewhere, and that could be Robinson, and he's 3,100 on DraftKings. So I see that as a great play. On the other side of the ball, T.Y. Hilton, I think, is a phenomenal play this week. You go Moncrief could be an all right play this week. He's gotten some targets, but their target share between him, Moncrief, and Doyle, they've all been almost straight across the board, 23, 24%. That's who Brissett's looking at. And if it gets into a track meet, I want Ty on my team. I think Ty is a great receiver. The other, I also am looking at a Jack Doyle. Maybe the San Francisco is a little better against the tight end, but looking into a Garrett Selleck or George Kittle, Indy's not that good against the tight end, so whoever is going to get the target share is kind of being sneaky. I don't know who it is, and that's going to be kind of the problem with me wanting to play that. Overall, though, on this game, Carlos Hyde is in just a nut spot. San Francisco's or Indy is still not that good against the run. Neither is San Francisco. San Francisco's actually improved. Last year they were terrible, averaging almost 180 yards a game, giving up. But Carlos Hyde, for me, is low ownership, and I might have him 55% of my teams. He can catch the ball. He gets, to run the ball, and he's basically their number one offensive weapon right now. So Hyde is the play for me. But on the other side, I'm going to have some Frank Gore. Nobody's on him. He still looks fine. He's not, Frank Gore of old. But Indy runs more than any other team when they get to the red zone. And if San Francisco gives up bigger chunks of yardage, I want a piece of that. And so I might game stack this game, and I might game stack Green Bay and Dallas. That's just, it feels dirty putting in so many bad teams. I've got the Browns, the Jets, Indy, and San Francisco. But what are you going to do? There's not a lot this week, and bad teams against bad teams can sometimes end up with a lot of offensive points. It's just the way it goes. We've only got a couple more games left. We got the Bills. They go to Cincinnati. AJ Green. AJ Green. Still don't trust AJ Green on this. Let's see. Buffalo, 73% of the time they run zone. So AJ Green against the zone, peppered with targets. AJ Green. That's all I've got. Tyler Kroft scored 2 touchdowns last week. Listen, the only reason I played him is Tyler Kroft. He got 6 targets the week before, and I knew he was playing Cleveland. Everybody was off of him because Tyler Kroft is a backup. However, he got 2 touchdowns last week. I'm hoping some more people get on him this week because I don't see it. Buffalo actually has they have very good defense, and major apologies because I said Tre'Davious White was garbage and he made me look like an idiot last week. So I'm going to fade the Cincinnati. I'm not going to get on the Joe Mixon train. I'm not going to get on any of their backs. I think Buffalo applies a lot of pressure to them, and I think this is relatively low scoring. On the other side, Jordan Matthews is out. I want to play LaShawn McCoy. This isn't a LaShawn McCoy spot. Burfitch is back. Cincinnati's tough all around. If they do have a weakness, it's a little bit on the tight end and a little bit against the run. So I can make a case if you want to get it at low ownership. And if he goes off, obviously, yeah, you're sitting in a great spot. But if you're going to pay $700-800, I would rather pay $8,000 and get up to Todd Gurley. That's just the way it is. Charles Clay, maybe, because you got to throw the ball to somebody. I'm just not in love with this game at all. And the last game on the slate is we got Steelers and Jags. And Jacksonville's just horrifically bad against stopping the run. They are awesome against the pass, but they cannot stop the run. And Lev Bell is just going to get force-fed that ball. He's going to be 25% owned, and I'm just telling you right now, eat the chalk, pay for him, get your points, because he's not going to dud. Outside of injury, he's just not going to dud. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but there's too much setting up in his favor. I'm going to eat the chalk. I'm going to build around Lev Bell. I'm hitting the lock button. I'm going to leave him in. And then I'm going to try to build a more dynamic team around him. I played him last week, and against Baltimore, he crushed. This is even a bigger crush spot for him. I see no reason why he doesn't get 30 this week. I just don't. So that's kind of the way I'm going to play that. If you want to play Antonio Brown in a GPP spot, Ben at home also in a GPP spot. It could be real sneaky. I wouldn't go a lot if you're building multiple teams, but it's just something to think about. Jacksonville has been on the road. They went to London. Now they went to the Jets, and now they're going to Pittsburgh. They could be just wore down a little bit, and this could be one of those effort games. You know how every team kind of has one of those get blown out, get their mind right. And that could be it for Jacksonville this week. On the other side of the ball, Pittsburgh is not good against defending the run. They're not bad. They're not like this horrible, horrible, horrible team. But they're still not good against it. Their yards per carry up there, and they're going to force feed the ball to Leonard Fournette. That's it. I mean, there's really nothing else to talk about. Marquise Lee's going to get some targets, whether or not he does anything. I mean, that's a roll of the dice. But other than that, Pittsburgh's defense is obviously going to be in play. It kind of goes back to that third road game. Blake Bortles always just a turnover machine. Hasn't been terrible this year. Been terrible throwing the football. Just hasn't thrown pick sixes like the clip he did last year. And actually, I missed one game, which is actually got to get on there, is the Chargers and Giants. And the Chargers, here's the thing is the Chargers are flying west to east. So that always downgrades for me instantly. They're tired. The offense isn't clicking. And the offense really doesn't look like it's clicking anyways. So I'm going to be so torn about what to do at the tight end spot, and that's the only spot I really want in this game, is they're going to be down. Is Hunter Henry viable yet? I mean, San Diego figured out that he's the pass-catching back, or the tight end of the future, and that's going to be the biggest question. If he had a nice game last game. 2 games ago, he had like 7 targets. But it all depends on what Phil Rivers is going to show up. And does that West-East game, for a 1 o'clock start, does that affect them? And it's been proven. I mean, West-East teams just typically do not play that well. On the other side of the football, I hear people saying Eli, they throw the most, out of any team, which is true. He gets the ball out quicker now. I'm off of Eli. Eli is in the Carson Palmer category for me. He's actually in a very good spot, and I can see the reasoning for it. He's super cheap. He's going to throw the ball 45 times, and he has OBJ, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, and Brandon Marshall. So he's got a good receiving core. I just don't trust him. He's one of those guys that is going to get you 25 or 30, or he's going to get you 6. And you never know when Eli is showing up. And I bet on the floor, and I think there's better options. Trust me, I'm not going to fault you, because my other option is Josh McCown. So okay. I mean, come on. Eli is in a good spot. The guy that I really like here, they're actually good against the tight end. The Chargers, they rank 30th, but they don't allow a lot of targets to the tight end. However, Evan Ingram, I think right now is the best tight end out of this rookie class. I watched him last week. He's big, he's fast, he's strong, he's got big hands, and Eli likes to throw to him. So this could be a very good spot for Ingram. OBJ is going to be covered by Casey Hayward. So it just depends on, do they shadow him? I'm assuming they're going to shadow him. So OBJ is kind of out of play for me. But then you go to the slot and the other side with Verrett being hurt. I can see a case for Sterling Shepard. And Brandon Marshall gets targets. It's just whether or not Brandon Marshall wants to play this week. So I could see Sterling Shepard, and he'll be in some of my lineups. I have him written down. And Ingram's going to be my top owned tight end. There we have it. We got through the games. Not sure if this is quick or not. But just a couple quick things to throw out. A couple people sent me their lineups. Put your latest player, put him in the flex spot, okay? And it's more of a tournament thing, and it might not bother or make a lot of sense right now, but last week, I'll put it to you this way. I faded all of Larry Fitzgerald. However, I did have Fitzgerald going in the latest spot, and I switched him to Emmanuel Sanders thinking, okay, Fitzgerald ownership is going to be high. And if I switch to Sanders and Sanders goes off at a low ownership, I'm going to continue to rise and make some more money. It didn't work out that way, but it was a strategy-based decision. It wasn't that I didn't think Larry Fitzgerald wasn't a good play last week. I just thought that the 25% of people who are on him are probably sharp or have, decent lineups. I would rather get Sanders at low ownership and just hope that he goes off, and now say he's at 10% ownership, only have 10% of the people to worry about. So that's one of the things. The other thing is correlate your games, guys. There's no right or wrong play. I had bad lineups. I had great lineups, okay? I got to work on that. That's a personal thing because I try to get too many people in. But correlate your plays. Don't play a quarterback against the defense that you're starting. Play, if you're stacking a quarterback, so say you're going Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, then run that back with whoever they're playing. Say they're playing Carolina. Run that back with a wide receiver or a tight end from the other team. Okay? And don't punt every position, and don't punt just one. A punt play should still be somebody who you think can get points. Just maybe his points are minimized. His ceiling might be 10 points. But if you think he's going to get 10 points, play him. Don't take just guesses and play whoever because, I'm going to scroll down and this guy looks like he's good. Well, no, he's actually in a bad matchup. Or, no, he's not, he's boom or bust to the point of his boom maybe 1 out of 4 games, but he busts a lot of times. And I'm going to use Martellus Bennett as a perfect example. Speaking of him, he actually has a good spot this week, but I'm just not, he hasn't shown us anything this year. So I'm going to, instead of saying, okay, he's in a good spot, I'm looking at 4 weeks saying, he doesn't do anything in this offense. Show me first before I punt it to Martellus Bennett. So I just want to make sure I get that out there and I'm clear about that because some people really haven't been paying attention to that. And it could hurt your lineup. If you're negatively correlated, it really does hurt your lineup going forward. Or say you're playing 2 lineups and you played them both in cash, but one lineup keeps knocking the other one out of cash, for every time somebody does good, like say Deshaun Watson to DeAndre Hopkins, but you only played 2 lineups and you faded those 2 guys, right? You fade them because you're believing that they're not going to score any points, but but you have them in another lineup, you're negatively correlating your lineups. So when one scores, you're rocketing past your other team. You got to build your core tight and then build the plays around that. So instead of having 16 running backs, have 4 or 5 that you really like and play those guys, and then fill in around those guys, but have them in have high exposure. Have them in, say you're building 100 lineups, have them in 25, 30, 35 lineups. And that's where I got off, because last week I had some nut plays, and then I had some plays that I played them because other people said they were good plays. I didn't feel good about them. And I can't say that every week, because the people that do have some good plays that they say, oh yeah, this is a good play, sometimes I haven't been talked onto them. I play them, I feel like, yeah, that was a good play. But last week was just one of those, I just didn't feel it was a good game for LaShawn McCoy coming. I wrote it up as a good game because they kept saying, you got to play him, He's going to be, he's the play. And ultimately it hurt how much money I made at the end of the day. So play the people that you believe are in good spots, or play, people that you think, like by looking at the numbers, they're the 32nd pass defense. Oh, I don't like that player. Well, play him anyways, because you know in your heart that he's going to score points. I just had to get that out of there because I see this happen too much. That's it for this week. I am going to do a write-up. I will get this out, and I hope you guys profit this week. All right, see ya.